Gangstas! What's up, guys? Welcome back. I just wanted to give you a little treat this time. Thanksgiving's coming up, and I got this really good it's a family story, okay? You know, and it happened to a family member and me, and I just wanted to share it with you. It's another gargoyle story, okay? This one's a family story and this one took place in Santa Rosa, right? Santa Rosa, Rosetown. My old stomping grounds, right? When I grew up. And so, anyways, I was in about the 4th grade when a family member got a paper route. You know, this is back in the, I would say, late 80s. And she had it for a few years, and then, you know, I was the helper, right? I would always help her out because I felt bad. I didn't want her to be out there and doing this paper route by herself and whatnot. And so I was a young kid at the time, and so I just decided I was going to go ahead and help, right? But we had this important event coming up. This was in 6th grade, right? And ever since when I was little, when I first got there, they told me if you're still going to this school when you're in 6th grade, you're in for a real treat because 6th graders go to a camp called Camp Cazadero, and they said you'll remember it your whole life, right? And I sure did. It was the most wonderful time in my life. It was such an experience. But in that week that I was gone for 6th grade camp, right, towards the end of 6th grade, my family member had to do this paper route by herself. And so when I came back from camp, had a great time. When I came back from camp, she had this story to tell me. And let me tell you about this family member. I've never seen her drunk. I've never seen her on any kind of drugs, religious, straight arrow, churchgoer, since I was a kid, you know. And don't go making up foolery or anything like that, right? So when I came back, imagine my surprise, right? When I came back after a week, she said, "Hey, I was doing the paper route, and okay, so let me tell you where this paper route was at exactly. It was due south. It was straight south of Santa Rosa High School, okay. And I haven't been there since the late '90s, right? And anyways." She was going up to, we had this one house, and there was a long wooden staircase that went up to the top apartment, okay, and it was upstairs, right? And I would just fling it up there, but I was so used to it, if it would fall down, it'd like land on the first step or like the second step, right, you know? And she said she went to go throw it up, and she looked up on top of the staircase, and she noticed that something was looking back at her. And it was sitting at the top of the steps, just looking back at her with, you know, like animal eyes. In other words, eyes that will glow, okay, in the dark. You know, animal that was meant to see in the dark, okay. These eyes are staring back at her. And she got so scared, she just turned around and she just kept on walking. And she said, you know what? In her mind, she said, this is what she told me, okay? This whole story is what she told me. A family member of mine, right? She just had decided that place wasn't going to get a paper that day, okay? She was scared. She was genuinely scared. And here it is, you know, the 1 week that I'm gone, right? You know, and that was my part of the route, too. Because we used to meet there and go our separate ways and then meet back and then would, you know, go across the street and we'd keep on returning the process and we'd meet each other throughout the time, you know, and come together and refill our newspapers, right? But that particular spot was mine. And So she went around and we had some apartments, and then she came back, and now she's heading in the same, like basically the same direction. But remember, that was on another block that where she saw that thing. And when she started walking, and it's really super dark. Like this route used to take us like 2 hours, okay? And as she was passing by, she heard it take flight from the next block over, take flight and come to this block she was on now and land in a tree, right? And she's like, no, this is not happening. This is like, no, this just didn't happen. Like trying to search her mind and say, is this real? Is this like, scared, like just out of her wits, just, I mean, terrifying, right? That this thing now seems like it's following her, right? So she's coming up to this corner house, and this corner house had some bushes around it. It had some really low-hanging trees. It always had a red light in it, and some stained windows, okay? Made it kind of eerie, right? Because you could kind of look into their, like, living room and kind of see it, but nobody was ever there. There was like a lamp on in the shade and a red light, right? Anyways, it took flight again one more time, and it flew over her and landed in a bush in front of her. So she has to pass by this house, and so she walks way into the street like anybody would, right? Like anybody. She walked way into the street, and as she was passing the house, she heard, and she heard it in a whisper, but I don't want to whisper it because you might not be able to hear it, right? But she did it in a whisper, so imagine this is being whispered to you, right? And she heard, hey lady, and that's when she lost it, and she just took off, and it was like, hey lady, and she just took off, and she was frightened. And I don't know exactly what day that had happened, if it was the first day I was gone or the last day, but she was scared. It scared me because I had to go back and I had to do the that was my part of the paper route, right? So let me tell you about this particular family member. Never believed anything I ever had to say. Never believed me. Like, especially nowadays, I'm so far out there, but even back in the day, I'm saying, never believed anything I believed. And we have a total different look on everything. Everything there is, we have a total different look on religion. We have a total different look on politics. We have a total different look on anything, we're just never believed anything I had to say. But when she told me that story, I always believed her. Because I know her. She's not going to make it up just to get me petrified. Not that kind of type of person at all. Now, I got some other family members that might do that, like everybody else has, right? But not this family member. This family member, I've remembered it and whatnot. But she don't believe anything I say. I wanted to throw that back up and say, hey, listen, remember the time that you told me the story, and I had believed you all these years, even though you don't believe any of my stories, right? And so in true Soda Jerk fashion, I got a hold of her. When I tell a story, I get a hold of the people in the story and ask for permission to tell the story. A true story, right? And so I told her the story. I told her the story the same way she told it to me. All those years ago, I told her the story. And I looked over. I said, do you remember me telling you the story? Well, her mouth was hanging open, right? Because she was terrified of the story that I just told her. And I said, do you remember that's your story that you told me? Do you remember that story? And she said, no, but it sounds terrifying. All these years, that story has haunted me. All those years, that story has scared me. I mean, it was just a terrifying story, and I had to go through that and whatnot. Just for all these years later, and she's old now, right? Her not remember the story that she told me. It was her story. Now, if I can make up a story like that, I would be a writer. I'd be like the next Stephen King or something like that, But anyways, gangsters, I just wanted to come on here and hop on here real quick and share another gargoyle story. My other one did really good. And if you haven't seen my other gargoyle story, a gargoyle story from the insane asylum. I'll try to have my editor put it up here somewheres and whatnot. But until then, gangstas, I'll see you later.